you know.
So we were just talking about like speed dating. I don't even know how we got into this conversation. One of those organic flows, you
Yeah,
know.
and just how it has a surprisingly low success rate in the U.S. Or rather, like the couples who are currently dating, like only 1% of them met through something like speed
I'm
dating.
surprised it's even that many.
Like most of them met through. I think it's one just because they had to round to some number, but it was the lowest category. Like the highest was, through uh, mutual friends, so friends introducing each other, family introducing family friends, and then below that like school and work, and then below that mutual hobbies and interests, so like some outdoor climbing club or whatever. Then below that was like meeting at a bar or like bookstore, and then below that is speed dating. So it's like at the very bottom after you've tried everything else, you know. Yes, speed dating is a thing.
Do you think that maybe also could have because people kind of have a tendency to go through the channels you said
In that
first,
order,
and
yeah.
then they no one chooses speed dating. They end up at speed dating.
I
And maybe this is why the stigma around it exists, but that's why maybe the stigma of like the 30-year-old loser exists is because for the longest time before it was even remotely socially acceptable, that's a lot of who you had because of that. Everyone else would kind of get filtered out through those means.
Yeah, that might have something to do with it. It might be some kind of reverse survivorship bias there, where most people, most of the normal people get filtered through the normal ways of meeting people, and then at the end, there's speed dating or there's other stuff. Um, but I was surprised it was like below just like meeting at like a bar. I expected the bar stuff to be like below that, but I guess I don't know.
There's a
Well,
very specific like person who resorts to speed dating because like going to school, going to the bars, those are things that like people do anyway, even
Mm-hmm.
if they're not like looking to meet someone. But like speed dating, that's
Going with
not
intent,
only
it's
are
like
you specifically looking to meet someone, there's no other reason to do it, but you also haven't like been successful the other ways.
yeah, there's like no pretense. It's like, this is it. You're doing this, I'm doing this. Let's see if this is a thing.
let me also add in for defense of bars, there's a reason why alcohol is sometimes known as social lubricant.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Alcohol makes you know, Bud Light removes no from your vocabulary.
It
So
lowers inhibition.
you get a drink in you. You might be more willing to say yes to a date with someone that maybe sober you would be like no. And I don't
Mhm.
mean that in a mean way, like they're a bad person, but
It's just
like
like no in general.
sober you'd maybe be more judgmental, is what I mean.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Now you were saying too, imagine like first hour gym versus like these what were they called like adventures and whatever.
Adventures and events.
Yeah, like what were you saying about that?
I was just saying that like if you're somewhat socially awkward and that has been the reason why you've struggled to meet people in like school or through friends or whatever, through like you've got those like social groups and you struggle to interact in them. I don't see how that would be different
Look at how socially
some sort of,
awesome
like-
I am.
Oh, he just got a text. Big
I
man.
just got a Snapchat friend ad from something that's most likely a porn bot.
Brenda Firestone.
Yep.
That
I
sounds like a porn bot.
the best thing is when they're actually manned by real people.
Yeah, it's like
And
someone
then
trying to
I've,
convince you
like-
to go on WhatsApp or something.
Yeah, or trying to go to some shady dating site, and it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I've been pretending to be like a Ted Kaczynski kind of like monkey for the last like 3 days. I've been talking about like the Industrial Revolution and its consequences, and you're just like,
Go on
okay,
WhatsApp.
hon, hey, you sound sexy. Want to see my tits? And I'm like, no, you are a tool of them. We must end industrial society.
Dude, I got so paranoid about the bots. Did I tell you that one time when I accused an actual girl of being a bot?
Yeah.
I've
Yeah,
heard that actually happens on dating
So
apps.
stupid.
Going back to dating apps,
Yeah.
I've heard that actually happens to fairly attractive girls quite often.
I felt so bad.
Where they'll be accused of being bots. Although I will say, does that sometimes reflect on you, like, if you just have no personality and you're saying the most generic stuff, and I'm like, okay, you're obviously a bot, and it's like, no, I'm a real person, I swear. Why do you think I'm a bot? And it's like, because your only answer,
Yeah,
your
you're
only
giving
answers are
one-word
like,
answers. You're giving
LOL,
generic,
yeah.
It's like you have no personality, so. Although this is why I felt bad. Like the person I was accusing of being a bot, she, English was her second language, so that
Oh no.
it was terrible. It was awful.
Oh no.
It's awful. That's why I don't accuse anyone of being a bot anymore.
Oh.
Yeah.
I will actually accept these friend requests, and sometimes they'll, if they're a real person, or at least if the bot tries, I'll mess with them for as long as I can get away with
Yeah.
it. But if they just send me nudes straight off the bat, like, check out my OnlyFans, I just report them for spam, and I'll always accept the request just so I can report them for spam.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way to fight them.
The sites have gotten better about that. Over time, there have been less bots.
Tinder hasn't.
Tinder hasn't really?
Well, the thing is, it's not profitable for Tinder to care because.
Well, no. Then the good guys get off the site,
Yeah.
and then the marketplace closes
Yeah.
because there's not enough product.
Well, also the thing is, Tinder Match kind of has maybe not a monopoly, but they have a huge market share, so they kind of don't need to care. And I wonder if it's kind of one of those sustainability issues where the current management doesn't really care, because it's like, oh, by the time it's a problem, by the time there's
it would have already made $1 billion.
By the time there's some mass distrust of online dating, I'll be long retired.
Yeah, they would have closed up shop. The tent's gone down. We have a phrase where it's like, it's a scare shop.
I'll already be in Bermuda with my millions by the time.
Right, I'll be out of extradition.
There's this
reach.
mass exodus from dating apps because nobody trusts it anymore.
Yeah. I'm disappointed that no one's actually committed, or maybe people have committed a lot of time to making an actual good dating app, but just they haven't gotten traction. That might be it.
Yeah.
But
do you ever think that maybe it's kind of a self-defeating thing? Like, if you advertise that you're a dating app for regular people, for example, everyone just assumes only boring people will use it through some weird association. Like, oh, we're for regular people.
Well, there are niche.
I'm not a regular person.
There are niche. Well, sometimes they do it similar to actually strategy of making dating profiles. They do that on purpose to attract a certain demographic. So there's a dating site, like Farmers Only, for example.
Yeah.
Or the uglybugball.com.
I've gotten ads for metalheads date before.
Yeah, they're the niche dating sites, right? That's the thing. I don't know how successful they are, or if people actually meet off of those. And
I think there's
how do we
also maybe a
define
difference
success?
between a niche dating app and if you're trying to make an app for generic, regular people.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well,
chemistry or match,
yeah.
trying to make it generic for
then
everybody.
it's I'm not regular, and then some of the attractive people that know that they don't need an app for regular people,
Right.
they're not going to go on it, and then I would start getting afraid that it's just going to be full of duds.
Yeah,
no offense.
There is that hypothesis too that's if you're even on a dating app, there's something wrong with you. There is even that stigma has largely been reduced over the last couple of years, but
Yeah.
there is that too.
Maybe that's one thing we could actually thank Tinder for, because I was even hesitant. Okay, I imagine it's kind of like somebody getting a first tattoo. I was really hesitant to get on it, and then after being on it for 20 minutes, I realized oh, nothing's changed about me.
No, yeah, nothing about you should
I don't
change.
feel dirty or I've committed some great sin or something. I'm just oh, so yeah, this is it now.
Yeah. We also can't pretend that it's the same experience whether you're a man or a woman on these sites. You definitely can't take that out of the equation. It's different whether you're a man or a woman.
It
using
most
these dating
certainly
sites,
is,
right?
yeah.
And that's not that's not a function of anything. That's just like the oldest rules ever, right? It's like that's just how
I
it
believe
is.
Tinder used to allow you to send photos. We could all guess why they don't anymore.
Well, yeah. I don't know what that was about. I don't know. I'm just disappointed a bit, but
Why is that the first thought that goes through some people's heads?
yeah, like
yeah,
what do you
that'll
hope
do
to
it.
accomplish there? But where was I going? That's a good derailing thought. Sorry.
The experience being different if you're a man or a woman.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely. Yeah, like for most guys, they go on these, they get like no matches.
That's me.
And yeah, I mean that's not just you. That's like most guys, right? It's like 80% of guys.
Yeah.
I don't know what the percent is, but I assume it's high. And then they realize it's not. It just as a matter of practicality, it's like if you bought a vacuum cleaner, or if you bought a guitar, and like I don't know, like if you bought a guitar, I'm looking at a guitar right now. That's why I'm saying it. If you bought a guitar and then that string isn't actually string. It's like
Fishing line.
Yeah, fishing line or yarn. It just like doesn't make noise. See, that guitar works, but like it's like if you bought that and it just didn't work. Like your product isn't doing what you expect it to do. So what do? You don't use it anymore, right? So there is I feel like there is some market dynamic. It's like, well, okay, like it can't be that lopsided, like that bad for guys. Otherwise, guys just wouldn't use it. But maybe there's enough churn. Maybe there's enough churn and people using it, like guys that there's enough of a nascent market. They call it like untapped. Like there's guys who haven't used it, and of course as new guys grow up to, enter the dating pool, right? As they get out of high school, get into the dating pool, like they'll get into a point. There's always going to be new guys, like new suckers. Almost.
That was me because I thought, well, I'm not having any luck, and one of my friends was like, oh, try a dating app, and at first I thought, okay, this might actually give me a chance, like, look at all the women on here, like, this might actually give me a chance at something, and then, of course, I watched my hopes get dashed over the next, like, week.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything for most guys, right? Like, it doesn't, like, for the guys where it works, like, they were probably getting hit on constantly before anyway. Now, there is the concept of the guy who just gets good at dating apps. To that we don't
just
even
figure out. There are some things I've done where I've kind of figured out how to game it a little bit, not to the level they have. But,
yeah, we don't even need to talk to those guys. They know who they are. They probably started their own YouTube channels on this nonsense.
Yeah. Interestingly, one of the things I did find somewhat successful is make a profile that caters more to your niche, because when you cast a wide net, you might end up coming off as generic, whereas if you cast a much narrower net, if you use a specific lure, like, okay, this is a weird thing, you're not going to catch a bass, you can't catch everything with a Cisco kid. You're only going to catch a big pike or a muskie with one of those lures. Similar to a dating app, if you use very specific bait, you're going to catch a very specific individual, and in that sense, I think I've been more successful only because I've found more people who have fit my niche and are maybe more, it's a better connection.
Yeah, you'll get fewer maybe overall matches, but you'll get deeper matches.
Even I feel like to just normal people, at least, I don't come off as like cookie cutter. If my profile was, I like to watch football and drink beer. All right, I've swiped past 150 guys today that all have that as their bio,
Yeah, that happens too. That phenomenon where every guy or girl starts to look the same on a dating site. Yeah. I think
all
that's
like
another...
5'4", blonde hair, pale skin, sorority shirt.
Yeah, it's like, well, I mean, you can't really even blame the participants of that system, because that was the incentive that was created. They probably tried something else and that didn't get them matches. They tried that and they got matches. So, but then once you do that, then now you're one of the generics. So then I think it's almost like a flip-flop, right? Like it's like whatever is like hot and new or not too rare, or whatever's hot and new and kind of rare will like rank high. But then once that becomes like a thing that everyone tries, that becomes common, and the opposite becomes like the thing that gets most matched. So I think it's sinusoidal, actually. I think it goes up and down, back and forth between different quadrants of styles.
I almost wish I was a little older just so I could have expressed my love of vinyl back in like 2011 or 2012 before the big vinyl comeback. Because now everyone's into it and I'm not really unique anymore in that regard.
Yeah,
It like stole my thunder.
exactly. It's
You
like,
know.
yeah, yeah. The signals. That's another thing. I think it might just be a signaling problem, right? It's harder to get these signals across on dating sites.
Well, and that's the thing too is like, on one hand, I'm glad they have like the Spotify connection because I don't really use Spotify, but I created one just so I can tailor my music. And what I meant by that is I made sure to go listen to specific artists a lot simply so they would show up on my Tinder as like top Spotify artists
Right.
because I wanted to show the diverse music I was into. And the only other way for me to do that would be to like lay out a bunch of my records on the floor and take pictures of them.
Yeah.
Which would be kind of cringy because that's
No one's
like
gonna
really
look
on
at
the
it.
nose.
Yeah, no one's gonna.
As opposed to the spot connected Spotify looks a lot more organic. Even though it is tailored, but I'm not lying when I do it, you know. I really do listen to those artists. I just don't use Spotify a lot. You know.
Yeah, I personally think it's mostly problematic. It creates problematic behaviors for most guys and girls when they go on dating sites.
I honestly I view dating apps as just kind of a necessary evil. And what I mean by that is it's just a way for me to get out there. It's like a tool and I don't pay for it, I use it for free.
Yeah.
But it's a tool that I can use to my advantage that only costs me like 10 minutes out of my day when I have nothing better to do. And it's a way for me to get my face out there when normally I really wouldn't because, you know, a lot of my hobbies don't exactly have super widespread interest or tend to be chick repellent for some reason, you know, like.
Yeah. Well, it's encouraged me to broaden my horizons because I realize that dating sites they're not. I don't think I'll meet the right person on those. I think even if you do make it quote unquote work, you end up with just like hookups, like which don't last very long. You end up with, you know, the kinds of girls who like conspicuous consumption and things that, you know, are more short term, which is fine, like if that's what you want.
One of the things I was also going to say regarding that was I wonder if because dating apps, especially like Tinder, have a tendency to cater to a market, have a tendency to cater to a specific type of person, I wonder if you just
100%.
get an over-representation of that kind of person. Like if only like 2% of women are actually that shallow, you know.
Oh yeah,
I demand a six-figure income. If you don't pick me up in a BMW, it's over.
Keep
But
saying BMW.
I don't know.
I love
But
it.
on dating apps or like on Tinder especially, it's like 15% of them are like that simply because it caters to that kind of individual.
That's what I was saying. Like,
and then they get overrepresented.
that's what I was saying. Like, it's not only that they get overrepresented. It's like newcomers to that who maybe weren't that kind of person before get incentivized to become that person as well. So like it's like transforming good people into bad people almost. Like,
I have a weird thing to relate to that, and I don't think it would be. On further thought, I didn't think it would be a good idea. But I've always, because apparently Tinder tracks your phone and that, so they'll know if you create other profiles.
I mean, sure, there's always a way around that.
Yeah.
Though. Like,
But I've always wanted to make a profile posing as a girl and set my interest to men just to see what
it's hundreds and hundreds of guys.
just to see what other guys put on their profiles, like
just
to
to
spy on it.
Yeah, just to see what it looks like.
And then I realized, well, wait a minute, have I just kind of become what you said, where wouldn't that just make me want to tailor my profile to be like them? Which is kind of also where I decided, well, maybe it's not a good idea.
Well, it's always gameable. Any system is gameable. And it's up to you whether you want to game it. But in this case, I don't think the prize is worth it, to be honest, because there's no prizes on these apps. And when you get on them, it doesn't encourage you to be a prize. You'll notice, you know, that term that the marketers like to use and the psychologists like to use, you know, gamification. There's good gamification and bad gamification, right? So good gamification is, for example, like encouraging you to save more money. encouraging you to work out more, encouraging you to study more, for example. I don't know. Encouraging you to save, like the environment, things like that. And there's bad gamification, which is pretty much everything else. Encourage you to waste more time on Facebook, encourage you to waste more, money on random products on Amazon, encourage you to click more, encourage you to watch more ads, encourage you to spend more time on Instagram, all this nonsense. What is the gamification that, apps are trying to do? Keep you on them, because the longer you're on them, the more likely you are to be unsatisfied enough to click buy a super like or buy, Tinder whatever premium, Tinder Gold, whatever they call it. The more likely you are to fail, the more likely you are to buy their product. And that's
they
just
game off your desperation.
Exactly. They don't. I mean, they do game off a little bit off of having like one Genghis Khan guy on there that gets the 20,000 matches, but the girls aren't winning in that situation either. I would say so. Like, they're not getting what they want necessarily. They're not getting a deep connection there either.
In that
so
sense,
it's not really encouraging good behavior. Like, it's literally, we can mathematically prove it's not encouraging any good behavior.
Relating to what you said, I'm kind of curious now to see gender statistics on the amount of like men that buy Tinder Gold versus the amount of women that buy Tinder Gold.
I don't think it's even marketed to women personally.
Yeah.
Like, there's no need for it.
Well, it's
for
well,
women.
you know what? It kind of relates to, I've heard stories of men just getting kicked out of clubs just because, like, basically, oh, the bouncer doesn't like you, or the owner said,
You ugly.
get that guy out of here, he's ugly. Like, they don't explicitly say it, but it was something dumb like that.
Well, it's not. I think it's usually a dress code thing. I've seen it just dress code, but like, I've never seen someone get kicked out for being ugly.
The reason that they're more likely to kick, or like, I once heard specifically a story where like a bunch of women were giving this guy and his friends a hard time at a club, and then they got kicked out.
Yeah.
The reason being, the clubs make money off of there being a lot of young, hot women there. They don't, and hoping that it will attract men to come in and buy drinks and hang out there.
So that's why they kicked the women out in that
That's
case?
why they kick the men out.
Oh, they kicked the men out.
They
I thought
kick
you
the
said
men out.
you
Oh,
said the
no.
women.
They kick the men out.
Of course they kicked the men out. I was surprised.
Because
I thought you said women.
because having a bunch of men there
Of course they kicked the men out. Why would
doesn't attract the customers.
Yeah.
Having a bunch of women
No,
there
that's not
does.
a surprising result at all. No,
I feel like it's kind of the same thing with dating apps.
Yeah.
They rely on that idea that maybe not a wonderland, but they rely on the idea that it's like a wonderland of hot single women that actually want to go on dates
Although
with you.
you bring up that point too, there is the counterpoint where if that's the case, what does that mean from an economic standpoint, which I'm sure you know very well actually since you studied that in college. So if the men are the ones on there and paying, and the women are there, but like there's an argument to be made that like the main customers then are actually the men.
100%.
Right. There's an argument to be made, like, despite the fact, which seems counterintuitive, right, to any man who's used a dating site. Really, this is a product designed for me? Sure doesn't feel like it. But it is, because, they don't get money from women being on there. So, like, in a sense, like, so what does a woman get out of it is a question, which we haven't even really asked. Like, what does a woman get out of being on a dating site? I mean, it's kind of obvious,
that's a
right?
good question.
Right, it's kind of obvious, like validation, immediate validation. They get potentially the idea of like, I can hook up with this guy, I can maybe.
I wonder if I've never seen explicit marketing about it, but I wonder if they kind of bank on the idea that fairy tale idea that you can find the one,
or you can find
is
the one
out there,
right? Like, they're selling that idea.
But then again, well, like you were pointing out, a woman, if you go on a dating app, doesn't need to buy premium. Like, she could just create a profile, and as long as she's half decent looking, within like a day, her like count will be like 99 plus.
It'll be hundreds, right? Like,
it's oversaturated.
Yeah, so it's like, so if that's the case, right? Where have we seen this before, right? So the idea actually came up a long time ago before gender was even involved. Facebook, right?
Mm-hmm.
The idea of Facebook, where, okay, Facebook's free and always will be. What does that mean? It means the people using it are the product. and the real customers are the advertisers. Now, if you've ever bought advertising on Facebook, it comes to that question, like, really, this is a product for me? Right? Like, it's not even something you think about, but it is true. It is the product for you. It's made for you. And it's tailored to you, despite what the public messaging is, and what the initial intuition is. So it's similar, I think, with dating apps. It is technically, like, I think with dating apps, it's interesting. It's two-sided marketplace, right? Like, I'm throwing in so much marketing lingo, like mostly to insult marketers, since I don't have a marketing degree. But it's two-sided, right? So I feel like it's almost like an empty promise sold to both sides, is what it looks like. It's like, you know, it's selling to the women, like, oh, you can find Mr. Right, or maybe you can get your hookup, you can get your validation. You can't actually get your hookup and validation as a woman. That's not an empty promise, I feel like. If you go on a dating site, you can get that. But the empty promise is that they can find the one off of like Tinder. And then the empty promise for guys is pretty obvious, is that you could even get a message from a girl, like or a like. At least that's the empty promise to most guys. But like,
I think they also rely a lot on those success stories to push the idea.
Right.
Like, they need at least a small percentage of guys to, like, oh yeah, I went on and I got, like,
yeah, they need that
20 matches in 24 hours.
They need the one Genghis Khan.
I went on a date that very night.
So the Genghis Khan theory there is they need that one person who's attracting all 20,000 matches. Like, so the idea is, like, the women do swipe right on people, right? They swipe right on the very top of the top. Now that's the guy that Tinder likes. Tinder doesn't like anybody else. They like that guy, and they will pay that guy almost to be on the site, which is it seems interesting, right? They'll charge every other guy, but the one guy that the girls actually like, they will pay to, like, they'll give free premium to. There's verified facts on this. They will give, their best features so that they get featured. They like the app, hook up with girls. Then girls tell their, thing, like, oh, I hooked up with a hot guy, right? They want some hot guys. There has to be.
Will they actually give them, like, free, like, premium in that?
Yeah. If they're one of those guys that looks like Aquaman's little brother and gets like 10,000 matches, which does happen if you look into this. They will be given special privileges, or at the very least, they're never getting kicked out or anything like that. And they're having a fun time with the app, and Tinder's having a fun time with them, because like that helps fulfill the empty promise that they're giving to the women, is that they're gonna find like the perfect guy off of this. Like, newsflash, no one's gonna find their perfect match off of these apps, like, because that notion of a perfect match means you don't want to put any effort into it yourself. It's like, so like, if you don't want to put any effort into it yourself, then like, what do you expect? You should lower the expectations. It's kind of like someone walking into a McDonald's and expecting a 6-figure job. Like, no, this is a McDonald's. Like, you know what this is about. Like, don't expect a 6-figure job. Expect a crappy job, which you can equally be crappy at and still get paid for, and expect that you can come in here without experience, but don't expect anything good out of it, almost, right? It's not necessarily, well, not even good, but like, I mean, don't expect anything good or bad out of it. Like, it is what it is. It's a similar thing to the dating site, and I think those few outliers, so like those Genghis Khan, Aquaman's little brother guys, like help show a facade, sort of.
So do you think there will ever be a point where what we seem to understand is like common knowledge like that? Or will it continue to be a revolving door of like new people coming in?
I think there will be a degree of revolving door of new people coming in, because this knowledge, it's like, it gets censored, in my honest opinion. Like, there's like, even if we posted this on YouTube or something, it would get taken down, like, almost certainly. Or it would have a very small following, or there would be a lot of like warriors that are like, this is
Okay, sorry, we lost the recording.
I wonder why we lost the recording.
It just, like, literally stopped recording right as you were going on that rant.
I wonder why.
And I was actually about to say, well, that's exactly my thing is, being active on Reddit, I know this. I can almost guarantee this rant is going to get posted on r/nice guys, r/just neckbeard things, r/incel tiers, and I think they kind of rely on the idea that this is some sort of like incel red pill talk.
Yeah, I'm not criticizing.
Even though it's kind of the truth, I think they rely on the fact that people will say like, "Oh, that's just like red pill incel talk. I'm not listening to that."
Yeah,
know.
Yeah, I agree with you. It comes off that way, but what I think what I'm trying to say here is like the dating apps encourage that kind of behavior. It's not that people are inherently like that or that that's even going to be the source of truth, like outside of the dating app, but just the way the dating app business works, it encourages its two-sided marketplace to behave that way.
Because that's how they make money.
Right, it's how they make money, right? Like, again, why I bring up the McDonald's analogy, you know, they pay, you know, minimum wage to people, like, because that's their business model. Like, it's not inherently classist or anything like that. It could be, you know, it's the classic example that's brought up, but, you know, it's not, right? It's just how their business works, and so as a result, it incentivizes certain behaviors. You can't really ignore those incentives, and that's just how the dating apps work. Or at least that's how Tinder works.
Honestly, the fear of that kind of backlash is what's always prevented me from making some sort of angry, sarcastic profile. Like, oh, you watch Friends? You must have such a person. Oh, you're only like the 10,000th person one I've seen today.
If you were a hot
that's
guy.
like, you know, I'm looking for the gym to my Pam. Oh, shut the F up. You know.
If you were a hot guy, that would work, though, is the thing.
Yeah.
Like, so, I don't know. I feel like it's enough of a thing, like, what you mentioned about if it's going to be a revolving door. I think it would be a revolving door, just because basic psychology and economics isn't part of our curriculum. So it's hard to identify these things. As to the solution, you know, just don't use the dating app if you don't want to be part of that business model.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty simple, right? You don't have to buy a product if you don't like it. Like, people complain about Amazon all the time. I complain about it sometimes, too. But mostly because I don't like their advertising. And I really have an option to avoid that advertising on TV. But, you know, if you don't like Amazon, just don't buy anything off of it. It's very simple.
Right.
Don't subscribe to Prime. You know, don't use Twitch.
But it's so convenient.
Right? Like, if you truly don't support it, just don't use it. And here's the thing. If everyone did that, it would suddenly go bankrupt. No, without a doubt, right? I know AWS is a thing, but that's not like a major part of their business.
I think that is actually like 75% of their business. Or
really,
something.
AWS?
Yeah.
Oh shoot.
So I mean,
I should know that. I use that for my job.
It's one of those things too that's like, then it kind of becomes hard to root out because you can go to your company, you can go to like your favorite brands and say, hey, I would encourage you as your loyal customer to not use Amazon Web Services, but you're only going to get so far saying that.
Yeah, I mean, as a product, like, I'm okay with the Amazon Web Services product, surprisingly, only because my company uses it, so, like, and I don't really have a dog in that, it's a different product line.
It's a different product line. I also think, I'm pretty sure the web developers don't get, you know, like, don't have to pee in bottles. You know?
Yeah, it's different. It's different. But yeah, that's a little bit of a derailment there. But like, if you don't like it, don't use it, right?
Yeah.
It goes back to you have the choice not to participate in that hierarchy, and that really only exists. That whole concept of like, oh, really, can women be that hypergamous? Like, if they're on that dating site, yes. Mm-hmm. Right, well, but they don't want that either.
And that's my thing. Like, I'm not a communist, so I'm not a collectivist. I'm not going to say, like, oh, you know, well, women expect men to always have witty pickup lines, but yet this is the 500th person I've seen today that's looking for the gym to their Pam. Because, you know, like, if you actually take the metrics, it's probably like...
Isn't that The Office? Right?
Yeah. It's probably only like... Friends, yeah, Friends, The Office, you know, what's the, you know, cookie cutter TV shows that I'm not saying they're bad, but it's like, you know... I understand why they're popular. I thought The Office was funny in that, but it's like, if you look at the metrics, it's really only like 3 to 5% of profiles that have that as their bio, which is a lot. But if that's only 3 to 5% of the female population that uses the app, then it's you know, it's a tiny fraction. You can't exactly say like, well, women expect us to be, because, you know, well, obviously, your sample size, your analysis does not support that
Yeah.
claim, you know.
Yeah, your own analysis doesn't support those.
Like I said, I'm
facts.
not a communist, but, you know, that's also the reason why
Don't know why you had to preface that.
communism is collectivism, but that's because I don't want to come off that way and then have someone be like, oh, great, it's one of these people, you know.
Is it true, if one of you can answer this, if not I'll look it up later, is it true that 1984 was a book that was banned by both the US government and the Russian government at some point?
I've heard that.
Is that even true? I would believe it, but I'm wondering if that's even true.
I've heard that before. I don't have verification.
Do you know when? The U.S. government?
No, I don't.
Trutherfiction.com. I guess we'll see if trutherfiction.com. I mean,
Well,
like,
as Abraham Lincoln once said, if it's on the internet, it must be true.
claim. Rating. Decontextualized. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Because, yeah, I would struggle to believe that the government, would be able to, just outright ban a book, like literally ban a book.
Mm-hmm. I think I'd find it hard in the United States of America for that to happen.
I mean,
you know?
I'm sure there are people who would, try. Or
Oh,
want
yeah,
to,
I don't
but
deny
I don't
that.
think it,
Okay, so in the case of the U.S., it was usually individuals or small groups responsible for local bans.
okay, yeah.
Oh, you mean
Yeah,
like
yeah.
99% of all the times the nondescript they have done something. It's like, oh, it's
Yeah.
just this small group
Yeah,
or something.
these
Trying to
bans
ban,
are
like,
often
Harry
recognized
Potter, stuff like
Yeah.
that.
by
yeah,
parents
okay.
against school districts. The U.S. itself can't even ban books.
Yeah, yeah.
Like that's against the First Amendment.
Yeah.
And I don't know about Russia. I'm imagining it might have been overstated there too. The book was mentioned in a similar Telegraph list of banned books. USSR was mentioned. Explained. Banned and burned in communist Russia under Stalin and USSR. Ownership met possible. I love that.
Okay, under Stalin, I could see that.
Yeah.
You know. But, so yeah. Oh, you want to know a really funny...
Decontextualize, that's right. Okay.
You want to know a really funny observation I've made about dating apps too?
Sure. Let's
Is
go for it.
until I guess Tinder started tracking your phone and that, so you couldn't just keep reusing
Which
the account.
again, there's always a way around stuff
Yeah.
like that. But
Well, one of the ways I've heard on the internet, of course, was to go out and buy a burner phone and associate the number with that. And I'm like,
You
how
could
much
do that.
effort are you people going to?
it's not too much effort. You go to a convenience store, $10 burner phone.
Oh,
I don't know how
guess.
much burner phones are. I'm just
Yeah.
assuming it's $10.
I guess. Not the amount of effort I'd be willing to go to. But I've heard it was a legitimate strategy. They keep updating their algorithm to get around, like every time people find these hacks, was to like delete and remake your account
Maybe your
every 2
business
weeks.
model is crap. I don't know, man.
So
You gotta keep retweaking
I never
your
did it 2
manipulation algorithms.
I never did it 2 weeks, but I would always do 2 months. Eventually, I'd run out of people to swipe on. So I'm like, okay, well, after a week of no one to swipe on, I'll just delete and remake the account.
Maybe you should gamify other behaviors, Tinder.
But I would always notice that you could always tell your position in the algorithm based off the amount of birth control product ads you get.
Really? I could always tell by the average weight of the person on
Well,
the other
that
side.
obviously when you first create it doesn't know where you are, so you get all just hot girls, and then
Yeah, then eventually it's just up 90 degrees, she's staring right up at the ceiling at the phone so you don't see her stomach.
yeah.
Eventually it gets to that.
But I always used to notice the ads I used to get when you first get on there are all for Trojan or whatnot. But then, once it realizes
That you're never
not
gonna need
once it
condoms,
realizes you're not going to need this product, then you start getting ads for other things.
Yeah.
But yeah, the average weight, which it's kind of weird to say that, and I think this also comes into where dating apps fail largely the niche attractiveness, is that I found out that me getting matches because I have kind of this niche appeal doesn't really matter if I'm up high or down low in the algorithm.
Right.
I'll just get these matches, and some of them are pretty attractive in my book.
Mm-hmm.
But it tends not to matter where I am in the algorithm, and I think maybe it's that unintentional way of gaming it because I don't not comply, but I don't fit.
Assimilate.
I don't assimilate. I don't fit in their target. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna swipe on the, white, blonde, blue-eyed sorority girl.
And you're not going to try and optimize your
You know,
profile to try for that.
Yeah.
Right. So
Looking
you're
for
not
the
gonna
gym to my Pam. I'm not looking for
yeah.
Tinder's primary market. I'm
Mhm.
looking for something else. So the algorithm, I found out as I've done that, tends to mean less in affecting my profile.
Right. So you might be onto something there where your earlier analogy with having certain kinds of bait or certain kinds of nets
Yep.
to attract certain kinds of people rather
Mhm.
than like a wider portion or like a certain like other kind
Yep.
of person.
Let's go to the muskie analogy. You could have lakes with like thousands of fish in it and only like 20 muskie. And if you throw in a Suic thriller, the only thing that's going to grab it is a big pike or a muskie, regardless of how many other fish are in it, or in the lake. So that analogy probably made very little sense.
We
to
could probably contextualize that analogy.
Yeah.
I think people will get it
Yep.
if they hear it.
Suic thriller and a Cisco kid, very large lures, like 8 to 10 inches long.
Cool.
I have one upstairs. I have a Cisco kid that I use at some of the lakes. That obviously it takes a very big fish to hit it.
Mm-hmm.
So for context, you're not going to catch a little bluegill with one of those.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'd be interested, like, if a dating app's internal team is aware of. I know they're aware of what they're doing. Obviously, if I'm aware, they're definitely aware since they're the ones who own the company. But I wonder if they've tracked like the life cycle of their average user, like, and tried to if you've ever heard of the Claritas Prism. This is something that marketers use. I don't know if you've realized this, but I do not like marketers or psychologists, especially when they try to use things against people. But that derailment aside, the Claritas Prism stratified the population into like 63 different categories of people, and then basically it was a dictionary for if you have this kind of product, you should market to this kind of person.
Mm-hmm.
There were some weird category names like Young Digarati was a name that I remember. And then it just describes different kinds of people, like old money, new money, the kind of person who likes conspicuous consumption, the kind of person who actively dislikes it, the kind of person that, just went to college and did this, or the kind of person who is, more blue collar, that kind of stuff. And there were like 63 categories. This is back before machine learning got really intense.
What was it called?
The Claritas Prism. So, I forgot how it was spelled. It was spelled, there was a Z somewhere in there, even though like there shouldn't be, but there was a Z somewhere. It was either in the
Prism.
It was either in the prism part or the S part with Claritas. But if you look it up, it's there. And I wonder if Tinder or the dating sites do that to their users, or if they do, what those kind of like character profiles look like. Do we have like the overweight loser, which actually technically, if you're in America, you got to be a bit more specific than that. Is it the overweight uneducated user? Is it the overweight like educated user who chooses to not use their education? Is it well, let's be a little less derogatory here. Is it like the person who likes outdoorsy things? Is it the person who likes alternative things? Is it the person who likes games a lot, like a lot?
It is Claritas and Prism with a Z.
I knew it. I knew it was somewhere where it didn't belong, but there was a Z in there, right? And yeah, they so that I don't know how old that is, but like I imagine marketers are a lot more sophisticated now, and instead of using just those straight stratifications, they use character traits probably, and assign them as they view these character traits exhibited amongst like the matches that they select. And I'm sure it goes deeper than that. There's people with like PhD.
Well, there's it says 11 life stage groups and 14 social groups. So one of them is the young Digarati, the segment that choosing to start families in fashionable neighborhoods on the urban fringe. They are highly educated and very tech savvy.
Yeah, it's so stupid. Like, I don't know. As I'm saying this, I might fit right into one of their stupid categories, but I do wonder if Tinder does that with their users, right? Where if they've made their own Claritas prism of dating profiles, right? Like maybe they're aware that everyone that goes on there is on there for a certain reason. Maybe they've narrowed that down to like 12 different reasons, and then maybe amongst that, like maybe they've honestly, I think by this point they've probably quantified anyone who ever has or will go onto their product. And that's a little scary because it means they can continue to scam generation after generation, just based off of like using human emotional triggers. I think that's rather dangerous because when you get to that level of manipulation, the only real winner is Tinder at the end of that.
I might be a Mayberryville.
What are you? I don't know what I am.
Or at least what I enjoy. Living in small towns, the segment enjoys outdoor activities. They live an old-fashioned way of life and are below average in their use of technology. Which is kind of interesting because I also enjoy like dark wave music, which is a lot of like synthesizers and that, but
Yeah, it's not perfect.
You can find a lot of like interesting clashing, I think, with people's interests in that, but
yeah, it goes.
Or maybe it's like their ideal life too, like what they enjoy versus maybe what they are currently, what they aspire to be. But anyway, that's just my thing because I'm reading that.
Yeah, and that's by Nielsen, by the way. So big company on analytics and surveys and things like that.
It's not just some small like startup that's like, oh hey, or some retired dude that's just trying to sell a textbook. It's an actual reputable organization.
It's a big organization, I'll say that. And yeah, it's a thing that they use. It's a thing that they sold. Like it's something that was used in the playbooks of a lot of corporations.
It's not like a flexible supply chain versus a reactive supply chain.
Yeah, it's not like
okay, mister, just trying to sell a textbook.
It's not theoretical garbage without application, right? It was something used by corporations to try and sell more of their products in a more efficient manner, and people did pay for it. So, like the idea then, has Tinder created their own Claritas prism, right? I think that deserves maybe a podcast of its own with psychiatrists and psychologists that are more experienced than we are to speak on that. But I would not doubt it at all if they already have some psychologists working for them and decided like already on like a set of 20-ish unique behaviors, 10-ish unique moods, and pretty much quantified human behavior at the point of desperation. I don't think it's possible to quantify human behavior total, at least with today's technology, but I think it is possible to do that on just a small segment of it, the desperation moment, and then kind of just getting them right there while they're on the dating site, and to capture a little bit of that desperation as money. But
okay. Oh, remember that bot that added me earlier?
Yeah.
Well, I look up at the add friends, and now its name is Maribel Yoshiko.
Wow.
Okay, so we have a different name now. Let's click accept and see what we get.
That's another thing. I wonder how sophisticated these bots are. Like.
Well, that's also something I was thinking of while mowing the lawn the other day. Do you ever? Do you ever think?
Just mowing lawn thoughts.
Yeah. Do you ever think? Okay, nothing yet. But do you ever think that maybe one day the bots will get so sophisticated where people just won't trust anyone on dating apps, and it'll kind of end up being the downfall of dating apps?
That might be.
Because, like, no, I refuse to meet somebody from online because I just can't verify if you're real, and the AI has gotten good enough where it can hold decent conversations without being like, oh yes, very gooder.
There was like an NCIS Los Angeles episode, which a little bit total tangent, but if anyone's seen it, basically like there was a hacker organization that took over the team's communications and made deep fakes of them with realistic sounding voices and videos of them, and like faked the actions of the entire team, which is pretty serious considering that it's that kind of show where there's a lot of guns and explosions. So. The idea has been floated around, and there certainly are, in my opinion, there are already systems that good. It's just one of those things where, yeah, the systems are that good, but they're in certain niche companies. No one's you can't really take it on a flash drive and just put it somewhere else. It's not
There
that
aren't
easy.
any, Estonian hackers that have this technology.
It's not
yet.
portable. It's not.
You know.
Yeah, it takes a lot of education and a lot of server space, and not even. It just takes a lot of resources. I don't want to get too specific on like exactly what, but like it takes a lot of research and private development to create something that good, like that would actually be useful outside of the context of whatever company developed it. But that was true of a lot of other things, right? That was true of like the computer. That was true of modern of like old Game Boy systems and things before they became phones, right? Eventually, this technology, if it's following all that other stuff before, it will get to a point where some Estonian can use it. So
will it get replaced by some other more advanced technology, or will people just kind of regress back to dating in person?
That's what I'm wondering.
No,
I
that's an
kind of
interesting
hope it's the
question.
latter, but
Because
I don't
that would be
know.
like interesting, like
Like, whoa, I'm gonna need to see some verification, and then they like pull out their holographic like thing, like I
or
don't
the
know.
chip or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah,
right?
the chip in their brain, and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
you're real, and then someone finds a way to emulate that.
Because I feel like there aren't like that many things like like the supersonic airliner where it's like, okay, we tried it, it worked for a bit, but it's not feasible anymore, so we're just gonna regress back to normal. Like, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like,
There's a company called Boom Supersonic that's trying to bring that back.
Yeah.
I read the Glassdoor reviews. I think they're failing.
Well,
So-
I don't know if we'd ever get to this point, at least in our lifetimes. But then, well, how do you know they're not just a robot? Like,
At some point, right? Like, when do we get to the Turing test where like we really don't believe anything?
it's when the government tries to like give everyone like a chip or some sort of tracking thing online.
Yeah.
The only reason
That
I think that's not gonna
everything is
happen
linked to.
the government's got so many archaic things to deal with right now. It's gonna be a while before they try to chip us, and for it to actually be useful.
Mhm. They have to worry about trying to figure out what a high caliber round is. So,
They got to figure out a lot of things, and honestly, they don't get paid enough to figure out those things. So I respect that.
Yep.
If it takes them a while.
All I know is I can rest assured knowing my 4570s are safe because they're not high caliber.
Although the whole thing about regressing back, I wouldn't. I would think like. So
It
the
is kind of a
value-
loaded term, but
I think it's a correct term though. I think what you mean is like.
doesn't mean bad. Just,
Yeah, it just means like going back to a former behavior that may have been devalued over time, but now it's like more valued. For example,
Yeah.
like malls, right? They've started closing more. There's just less of them, but maybe they come back, right? Because now, we have so much digital interaction that's not as that when you have more of something in any economic system, it gets devalued. So
Mhm.
at some point, will that other stuff that we used to have come back in value?
Although I think with malls kind of replaced like small town
Mm-hmm.
America, like downtowns, and now it's kind of like the opposite. Like a lot of like downtowns around here are like booming again.
Yeah,
and
they're
the
trying to
malls
do
are the
that
ones
whole,
shutting
like-
down. Yeah,
They're trying to do that whole revitalize the
Yeah.
downtown. Is epically failing because they refuse to clean up the east side, which is like, hey, come to these downtown alive events. By the way, if you step foot outside of downtown, you're in the most dangerous neighborhood in this area. Like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. But that's beside the point.
Yeah, it's like are things gonna make a comeback, right? I hope that does happen. I hope that because online dating and stuff like that. I hope that reaches its. I hope that's reached its apex already. I hope it's on the downturn,
Mhm.
right? Market cycles happen. There's ups and downs. I hope it goes down because it really should, right? There's very little value I think being added to humanity for it. I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe the statistics they're quoting are actually true. Maybe there's millions of marriages and we're just the weirdos. But I doubt that's true.
Yeah.
I really doubt that's true.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. That's just a hope of mine, right? I can only hope that certain things become more valuable and less valuable as time goes on.
Yep.
But we all know how that worked out for the crypto investors. So, yeah, which is another podcast on its own. But
Yeah. No. Yeah, I'll say is the last thing. Like, yep. So, can't wait for this one to be like hunted down and banned from YouTube.
Banned from whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like
Banned from whatever.
Vimeo, Reddit, wherever this ends up being.
Yep.
I can't wait for them to do the reverse voice analysis and find out, like, this is that guy.
Yeah.
Let's go track him down.
Go track him down and, you know, post his address to incel tears or something.
Yeah, let's do that.
Which I'm honestly, I would not be surprised if it came out that there were bots posting on that sub specifically to weaponize people against certain people.
That's the thing. Like,
you know,
people are being played with on the internet without even knowing.
Yeah.
It. Like, it's so. It's wild.
Well, you know the thing too. Like, I bring up Reddit just because I'm kind of active on it. There have been instances where like people will post like a picture of Ray Kroc in front of his first McDonald's, and they'll post it to r/oldschoolcool, but then they'll find out it was actually an account run by McDonald's.
Yeah.
It's like you start to look at things really cynically when you know that, but unfortunately, it's like, how many times is it just the truth? You know?
Yeah.
Like, yep. I wouldn't be surprised if there were bots or, like, you know, some account that has a connection to one of these dating apps decides to link the video. OMG, this is horrible misogynistic bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, when you have when you have a multi-million or billion-dollar company, you got interesting ways to deal with problems. Well, I'll say that much. Or interesting ways to deal with what you perceive as problems, what, you know, me and you might perceive as actual just economic things that companies should have to deal with and shouldn't be able to buy away, right? They shouldn't be able to just buy their problems away. But then again, Musk just bought Twitter, right? Apparently he can buy a problem because he's that rich, right? That's something I think doesn't get taken into account. It's like, oh yeah, did you know people can just get rich enough to buy their problems away?
Yeah. Well, you know.